The things that I have to report, that I've been reporting nationally, is not so much, I don't amass a large volume of secret documents. That's not my bag. So the pressure that I've come under is being able to allow people a different perception of reality. What we perceive as reality in our lives as far as the world, I mean, we're talking O.J. Simpson and all this other stuff that we're given, is a very controlled illusion. And the actual reality in which we live is much greater than what we're being allowed to perceive.
Being allowed by who?
We're talking about the same people that, here we go, I have to be careful because right now anybody that says that the government's wrong is going to be kind of like have some eyebrows raised at them. But there have been certain divisions within governments worldwide that have made sure that the public only knows so much, because since the very beginning they felt that we are not able to handle change. And this is one of the reasons why it may be justified in initially, covering up the UFO angle, because they had to learn how to release it to us slowly.
Yeah, but do you think that there is anybody that knows? Is there a Majestic 12? Or is there a group? Does the president know? I hear the president doesn't know.
Well, I believe there are groups. However, I believe there are groups within groups within groups within groups. So, and it's, everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to know, and it's very compartmentalized. So inside the CIA, there are black book operations occurring within their own ranks also that they don't even know about. And within that rank, there's probably other split-off divisions that are creating operations of their own that nobody else knows about. I heard. So at what point can you get an overall picture? It's almost impossible.
That when Clinton went in, he said, "Okay, I want to know about these saucer things."
Right.
And they said, "No, we don't. We'll give you a little, but that's all you can get." And he took high umbrage at that and said, "I want to know." And they said, "No, you don't. You're not going to get what we have."
Well, President Carter said the same thing. He had actually had sightings of his own, and he said that he was going to make it one of his main issues to go in there and try and reveal what was hidden.
Yeah.
And apparently he wouldn't say a word. So whatever is going on is much larger than the office of the president.
I even heard the Kennedy story that Kennedy was going to announce what he knew, and that's why he was assassinated.
Well, I think he gave a lot of people reasons, including his own wife, to try and kill him after his affairs. So, it's kind of hard to pin down exactly what was going on. All we do know is that there are powers to be out there that are much larger than us as small individuals, although together, small whispers make a loud voice also.
All right, now what story are you going to tell today that you've been working, the project you've been working on?
Well, it's about archaeology, and it's about how and who we are as a species and how we fit into this planet. One of the things that has been brought to my attention is that as a nation and as a people, we have really no idea or no concept as to how we fit into this big picture. And one of the reasons is because the archaeology that has been discovered around the world, and here in the United States is my main focus, much of it that would otherwise make people rewrite history books and make us rethink who we are as a species has been taken away from us because they felt that we couldn't handle the change. Originally, back in 1929, the Smithsonian Institution was headed up by a gentleman by the name of John Smithson. He was an eccentric millionaire in England, and he had taken about $515,000 and set it aside so that we could create an institution for diffusing information and knowledge amongst men. Now, that was all great in its idea and concept. However, we have to then go into back into 1881 when John Wesley Powell, the great explorer of the West, appointed a gentleman by the name of Cyrus Thomas as the director of the Eastern Mound Division. Now we're getting into the pyramids, like you said you were talking about yesterday, where pyramids and mounds, the mound builders
That's what we were talking about, those two, mounds.
Right, had been actually, just as there are pyramids in Egypt, there are pyramids here. And these pyramids scatter the United States. And some people believe these pyramids were built on natural energy grid lines across the world. That's why when you start getting an overlay of them, you start to find out they're all actually in lines, ley lines they call them. And when John Wesley Powell appointed Cyrus Thomas as director of the Eastern Mound Division, John Wesley Powell loved the American Indians. And he felt that if anybody else came in and started declaring that there was a more advanced race than the American Indians, he didn't want that done because he had great admiration for the Indians. So he told Cyrus Thomas to keep his mouth shut and to try and squash the information about the Eastern Mound pyramids and the conical-shaped pyramids and the mounds that they had found.
And the conicals are the ones he was talking about underwater in this rock lake. And he's had pictures. I took these books on. I wish I had them down here. You could see them. They're about 30, 40 feet tall. They look like a mushroom. You know what a morel mushroom looks like?
Yeah.
Kind of like a Christmas tree bulb.
Right.
Kind of like this.
Right. Well, this goes all the way back to when you look in ancient archaeology, how some people used to flatten the tops of their heads. How they used to, as children, they used to take boards and tie them to the top of their heads, and they'd grow the tops of their skulls in a conical formation. It's because they recognized this as a sign of royalty. And also, people believed that when this happened, it pressed the forehead backwards, so the pineal gland, which has always been considered the secret part of the psychic center of the brain and the connection to gods, when the part of the forehead was pressed backwards, it created more of a connection between your consciousness and your pineal gland, and allowing you to be able to tap into unknown knowledge.
And they knew about that?
They knew about that, and they recognized that as part of the conical shapes in the pyramids as well.
My goodness. Well, we'll come back and get into that some more.
Okay.
And if you folks want to get in here, John Rhodes is in here. He's better than Robert Lazar.
Yeah. So he's building his rocket cars. Pardon me?
You ever run into him or see him? Or?
No, I haven't, as a matter of fact. I've been kind of like doing my own thing and
where are you doing your own thing here in town?
I have that information in my briefcase.
We'll
After we come back to the break, I'll break
It's 18 after 10. My buddy Rob Anderson wants you to come down and be with us tomorrow or anytime and see the beautiful new restaurant, the Hereford House at 20th and Main. Well, it isn't new. It's the same old place, but they've remodeled a large portion of the inside. So come on down there. We're going to be down there tomorrow. Michael Mahoney from Channel 9 is going to be there. Frank Smith, Director of Global Studies from Rockhurst College, is going to be there. We're going to have a great time. We're going to have a great show. Dick Kurtenbach from the ACLU is going to be there, and we're going to have a great time. So plan on coming down there with us. And having a hamburger or a steak, of course, a steak, you go to a Hereford House Steakhouse, you want to have a steak. And so maybe you want a fillet. Their fillets are so good you can cut them into your little finger. And once you've eaten at the Hereford House, you're going to know why every major publication says the Hereford House is the best steak in Kansas City, and why it was recently selected as one of the top 10 great steakhouses in America. Still at 20th and Main, but all the improvements, gorgeous inside, I am told. I have not seen it, so we'll all get together tomorrow and be down there, and you come on down and be with us. We're going to have Lamar's Donuts, free and coffee. You don't have to spend anything until the doors open at 11 o'clock, and we'll be there at 9. At 20th and Main, the Hereford House. Give them a call if you want to make reservations over the weekend, 842-1080 for reservations. Absolutely the best steak in Kansas City. Be sure and tell them I sent you.
Look what's popping up for spring. Come save on lots of things at Sears Days.
Just in time for spring driving, it's Sears' lowest prices ever on great brand name tires. Through Saturday, get huge savings on Michelin, Bridgestone, Guardsman Plus, and more. From 5 to 30% off. For our lowest prices ever on these great brand name tires. Roll on into Sears Auto Center by Saturday.
Come and save so many ways at Sears Days.
Sports cards and memorabilia collectors, don't miss the Spring Sports Card Show, sponsored by Action Sports Cards and Collectibles Mall and Antioch Shopping Center. This Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, April 28th through 30th, you'll find 80 tables packed full of new and old cards and collectibles. On Sunday afternoon from 3:30 to 4:30, stop by exhibitor Clear Innovations table for your chance to meet Kansas City Chiefs rookie Donnell Bennett. Donnell will be signing autographs with the purchase of selected memorabilia items. Don't miss the free prize drawings. The grand prize is a limited edition Joe Montana lithograph. Exhibitors will be from the Kansas City area as well as around the Midwest. Find a huge assortment of old and new cards, plus sports collectibles and autographed items. And admission is free. Plan to attend the Action Sports Card Show this Friday and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. April 28th through 30th at the Antioch Shopping Center, located at the crossroads of Antioch and Vivian Roads in Kansas City North.
The following is brought to you by Playtime. Now, have you ever wanted to know how to own your own business, be your own boss? I guess take total control of your own life. Isn't that the great American dream for everyone? Well, you can do it for a lot less than you think. I'm going to tell you how you can become an actual owner of your own business, work as little as 3 to 5 hours a week, even part-time, make as much as $35,000 a year or more, possibly a whole lot more. And there's no direct selling involved, and it gets better. It's not multi-level marketing. Now, here's the toll-free number for all the details. 800-797-1666. That's 1-800-797-1666. It's perfect for extra income or even retired people. And you can even keep your current job if you need to or you want to. Own your own business, work as little as 3 to 5 hours a week, make as much as $35,000 a year or more. Get the details. 1-800 797-1666.
Talk Radio 810, KCMO. Radio with attitude.
All right, we're back here on the Mike Murphy program, here with you on this Thursday with John Rhodes is here. What do you call yourself, John? What do you say you are?
Well, a lot of people tell me I'm a lot of things.
Lunatic.
Absolutely, why not, I'll own up to that one.
You're not nuts, are you, John?
Well, at times I have been.
Well, we all are here.
I've noticed, and that's great.
At this point. You're an investigator, researcher.
I'm an investigator and researcher into the UFO phenomenon and also archaeology because I believe that it's all linked together. Undoubtedly, it's all linked together. And, one of the things that drew me up to my most recent investigation into the Grand Canyon was just that, was finding out about if there are other species, right, then are they coming? There's a matter of three or four places where they could come from. First of all, we're talking about interdimensionally. And then we're talking about, are they coming from outside our planet? Then we're saying, are they coming through time and space? Which could be considered dimension, but another form of it. And then the third one is, are they our own ships? And the fourth one is, or have they always been here and they're actually located and hidden underground? And we are the surface inhabitants, and that's exactly what we're supposed to do. When you start looking at mythological and legendary stories from around the world, they all claim that there are beings and advanced gods that have lived underground under our very own feet for millennia. And when you start looking at the NASA and the United States government doing space exploration, it's like, from my point of view, it's like watching a magician. He's saying, ladies and gentlemen, have a look at these three aces, and he holds them up in the air. Well, if you really want to see what's going on, look at his other hand and see what his other hand is doing. And what I've noticed is they've held the aces out in space, and meanwhile, the other hand has been reaching underground and digging away and finding lost artifacts from past cultures.
Didn't you tell me a great battle was fought somewhere underground?
Well, there was, thank you very much, bringing me back on track here. There was one reported base in northern New Mexico called Dulce, out of a small...
Yeah, that's the one.
Right, the Jicarilla Indian Apache reservation out there. And there was a gentleman by the name of Thomas Castillo, who was a security technician there, a major. And his job was to align all the cameras down the facility's corridors to keep an eye on it. The layout of the facility itself was circular in shape. And this circular shape had concentric ring circles on it. And those concentric ring circles held certain laboratories, DNA laboratories, genetic testing. And this is where he said, for years, everybody that was working there, they had told them that the people that they were using in genetic experiments, DNA experiments, were insane people. And not to talk to them. Everybody's told not to talk to them. And that human exploration in the genetic genome program was continuing on underground at this base. Well, anybody that hears that initially thinks that's ridiculous. But then we have to remember that it was George Bush who told us himself on national television that the Human Genome Project is the most advanced and important area of research that the world is getting into. And the United States, at all costs, must stay on top of it in order to stay ahead. And when you start talking about human genome projects, with animal activist groups out there, it's almost impossible to make those leaps and bounds without using at least animals, or in some cases human beings, in these projects. Now, I don't agree with that, and I don't justify it. I think it's totally wrong, and as a matter of fact, it's not only immoral, but it's evil. I think it is the purity of evil that that is actually going on. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. We have to only just remember that they were giving, radiation experiments through the last,
John, who are the Morlocks?
The Morlocks?
Yeah.
I'm not exactly too sure about that.
Well, the Morlocks were from the Time Machine.
Oh, that's right.
And there the people would, they'd lie in the grass and eat fruit, and then the Morlocks would blow the horn, and then they'd come in and they'd eat them.
Come running out from underground, right?
And they'd come in, and the Morlocks lived underground, and that's H.G. Wells, and he was so good.
Right. Well, one of the things is, let's get into the Smithsonian Institution a little bit, because that'll help us draw...
Okay, now what's going on?
Okay, well, the Smithsonian Institution, let's first of all talk about who they are, okay? The Smithsonian Institution is an institution headed up, the search team in the Smithsonian Institution is headed up by a gentleman by the name of Barbara Conable. Now, any search...
Cannibal.
Conable. Cannibal. Any searching that's going on out there or any explorations, everything is brought straight back to him before it's then put out throughout the ranks and file of the Smithsonian Institution. Barbara Cannibal, who's the one that hears all this information and decide what's going to happen to it, was a former congressman. As a matter of fact, he was president of the World Bank. So this is where we bring the big money people into it and the people who really wield power in this world. So any exploration that's going on out there, the first person to hear about it is the World Bank. And they're the ones to decide what happens with this information. Was there evidence of advanced technology? Where are these facilities or these excavations, where are they located? And the location of any kind of an archaeological find like that is actually kept secret. There's a federal law now that says that disclosing the location of archaeological digs is considered a felony.
You told me there's some law about the Grand Canyon where you can't get down there and go on such...
There are places down there which they don't want people to go because they said they're dangerous caves and mines. Well, here we get into it. In 1909, I discovered there was this article...
Before you do, stop right there, and we'll come right back there.
Okay.
And we'll be back here.
Standing and talking to Eve, right?
Yeah.
And then you get all the way back to even the Indians in India in the Valley of Kashmir had the Nagas, which were mystical reptilian beings that lived under the lake. Well, this is all around the world, and it's the most ancient, stories associated with all religions and cultures. Now, how can this be? Well, has it got something to do with the fact that maybe somewhere along the line, during natural evolution here on Earth, there were an advanced form of reptilian species that split off from us, and we are just another branch of the tree, or you could say it's the tree of life, the genetic evolutionary tree of life, that have remained hidden, although they've become technically more advanced than we have, and they're just watching us. And one of the clues is that Carl Sagan himself wrote a book called The Dragons of Eden, very, very appropriate title, in which he theorizes upon the evolution of human intelligence. And in it, he said that there was a gentleman by the name of Mr. McLean, who is a neuroanatomist, who says that the most ancient part of the human brain is called the R complex. It sits on top of the spinal cord. It is the basic root and the commanding structure of the human brain.
We all have a serpentine part of our brain?
That's what I'm getting to. The R complex stands for reptilian. R for reptilian because we share it with reptiles. Everything else around it, the limbic system and the neocortex, which takes up 85% of the brain, are nothing else but built on top and around the R complex. So it shows through the evolutionary stages of human evolution that the R complex is the most ancient part of the human brain. Now, there's the genetic connection between the Greys, or the people who are doing the abductions, the species doing the abductions, and us. They are just more reptilian than we are, although we are mammalian reptilian.
Apply this to Adam and Eve.
Oh, boy,
how could this, and the story be told the way it was told? There was a snake that said, do this. Now, if you're talking to people who are if you're writing this in biblical terms, and you want to explain to these simple people what has happened here, and I think it's all laid out in the Bible pretty well what happened here. We can interpret it right.
Not only the Bible, there are many other works of art works of religion around the world that share the same story.
So this serpentine or tine creature,
right?
Well, tells these some of the first creations or whatever they were, that there are certain laws or there are things that they can do, or
right. Well, originally,
and this creature that is whatever it is telling them giving them the rules.
Yeah, that's true. And then this reptilian creature was then called Satan. Well, when you start, I don't want to go into the religious aspect too much because even during my last lecture I did, and that is kind of like touchy. Although there are many other works of religion around the world, but just for the sake of the fact that a lot of us can identify with it, let's just address this one issue. In the Sumerian text, the ancient cradle of civilization was known as Mesopotamia. They think this is where the Garden of Eden was back in Iraq, okay, where Saddam Hussein is now. This ancient Sumerian text, which predates all historical evidence of Christianity, says that there was an overlord society, a god society that ruled over man, or mammalian man, and that they were highly technically advanced. And then you start looking at the pyramids and all the structures that are around the world, and you think, well, obviously somebody was very advanced. They had said in the Sumerian text that these beings were not human, and that they descended from the stars. One of these beings, who was called E, or Enlil, And Enlil apparently was in charge of the genetic manipulation of man, and in charge of taking divisions of man into a genetic laboratory and trying to advance them culturally and mentally. Well, they had a lot of humans doing their hard manual labor for them, because at first when they were here on the planet, they did their own manual labor. They discovered this mammal-type ape man, and they said, well, let's give him a certain amount of intelligence so then we can tell him to go gather the water, tell him to go, pull the crops in.
This guy was telling me yesterday 500 million pounds of copper were mined at a certain time around this 3000 BC period.
Oh, yeah. There's a mine in the Rocky Mountains that was mined about 8,000 years ago, and they were mining crystal quartz out of it. So you got to start thinking, well, obviously there was somebody mining and collecting something, and before that it was just, we were a bunch of what, mammoth slayers.
Yeah. How would we be mining? Why would we be mining?
Right. Well, anyway, so E was in charge of this genetic connection, right? But E, apparently, according to Sumerian texts, lived in a place called Snake Marsh, a very lush place where there were a lot of reptiles. Well, snakes also live in a den. And see, he took some of these beings, he had compassion, and he found some of these beings and thought, these beings have so much more capability than just being farmers. I mean, they have real, promise. So he took some of them and opened up their perceptions in this den of snakes. And that's why it's called the Bible, which is a collection of works based on a lot of ancient history, was then called this place Eden, or Eden. And this is the walking, talking reptilian.
All right. Well, maybe you think one day there's somebody will open a book and say, okay, here's page 1. Here's what it is. Here's the whole thing. Here's the whole story.
I have a feeling that we have to find it ourselves.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, it seems like we know more than we did, though.
We certainly do.
12 minutes, 11 o'clock. Be back here with John Rhodes on Talk Radio 810 KCMO. He's in town. He's going to be out of town. Then he'll be back on Sunday with a seminar out at the Holiday Inn.
Holiday in Lenexa.
In Lenexa. 5767681. If you want to jump in here real quick. Before we end here, John, I want to get into what you wanted to talk about was what's going on in the Grand Canyon.
Let me talk about real quick. Now, back in 1909, there was an article written in the Arizona Gazette newspaper about an explorer by the name of G.E. Kincaid who was traveling down the Grand Canyon on a boat. He had discovered a cave that had mummies in it, and it had Buddhas. And he took some of these artifacts down to Yuma and then sent them on to the Smithsonian Institution. The Smithsonian Institution sent about 40 people out there, and they started exploring it. When this article was written, he said that they had explored a city underground in the Grand Canyon that was large enough to house 50,000 people, and they hadn't only just but started to explore it. And he said that the exactitude of everything that was built and the construction of it was even more advanced than those of the Great Pyramids. So this means that we found an underground city built by an advanced civilization in the Grand Canyon caverns. Now, the Hopi myth and the American Indian myth around the nation say that they believe that they came from underground. Hence, we have discovered an underground city. Well, I've done about 3 years...
The Hopi said that.
The Hopis and also many other American Indians.
Hopi said wonderful things. Hopi also said, man, one day we'll look into a box and see people 3,000 miles away, thousands of miles away when they were talking about TV.
And they were right.
Yeah.
And they were right.
Wonderful civilization.
But they also believe that we're coming on the end of a great spiritual cycle in which the earth is going to cleanse itself, and they call this the Great Purification. And they've gone to the United Nations several times, even once recently, to say, we have to get our act together because this earth is about to turn over. Anyway, so with the Hopis, their own myth of where they came from, their mythological history, say they came from underground. Well, after 3 years of investigation into this supposed article that I had found, consequently, I've also discovered that articles of the surrounding newspapers at the same time for that same date of April 5th, 1909, happened to disappear off microfiche in libraries. Now, this started really making me think, well, I have finally, after 3 years of intense investigation, discovered the location of this underground city that they have covered up. I've not only discovered where it is, I've also accumulated physical evidence.
You yourself?
Yes. I've also accumulated physical evidence as to the actuality that this underground world does exist. The only problem is that it's been extremely dangerous because the top level of this facility that housed 50,000 people, there's multi-levels to it, is being left fairly untouched, but the lower levels are now being used as part of black book operations with an underground base. And I'm not even sure that the people who occupy the base inside the Black Book operations really know, except the hierarchy, of the significance of where they're located. Many of the people probably just think they're underground somewhere.
Have you been out around in there?
I've been around the same location, although just to remind people, after they discovered this, they knew it was connected to the Hopi Indians, they wanted to keep it secret, so what they did is gave that particular tract of land to the Navajo Indians, who are the Hopi's enemies, because the Hopi believed that nobody should own land, and the Navajos were nomads, and when white man came along, they noticed the Navajos occupied all this territory, so then just gave it to the Navajos. Well, the Navajos have kept this secret for so long because they know that if the evidence ever got out, it could start the land war up again. Well, I don't need to make it any more evident that because the Hopis feel that we're at the end of the Great Cycle anyway, they don't care about even if they knew that it was there, because there's no use in it now anyway.
Yeah, well, what does this mean? Does this mean these people came from somewhere else?
Well, put it this way. There's theories that say that the pyramids were built by a being by the name of Enoch, right? The Great Pyramids of Enoch. And the people who helped him build it were the Phoenicians, who were the ancient travelers, the sea travelers of the ancient world. Well, the Phoenicians, isn't it interesting that not so far from the Grand Canyon, there's a city called Phoenix. And in that city called Phoenix, they declare themselves called Phoenicians. And anyway, so I've gathered this evidence together, and the lecture that I'm going to be giving is going to be showing a whole bunch of slides regarding underground bases,
John,
technology.
you know too much stuff. You ought to just focus on one thing and just say, "No, I know this." You got hundreds of things that you talk about.
Well, it's all related. It's all related
I know
to
it is, but
the
it's all
advanced
connected.
field of UFOs. Absolutely.
It is indeed. John, it's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now, this is Thursday, and you'll be back here Sunday.
Right. Let me just give this information. Can I give this out one more time?
Yeah, I want you to have a big full house.
In Cedar Rapids, Iowa, it's going to be on Friday, April 28th at 7 p.m. at the Cedar Rapids Public Library. The phone number to contact there is 319-364-7350. Tickets are $13. And also on Sunday, April 30th, it's going to be here in town at the Holiday Inn Lenexa. That's off of I-35 95th Street exit, $13 again. And also the phone number to contact and to leave a message in case you want somebody to call you back is 913-791-3870.
All right. When do you think we're going to know? When is the president going to... Is that ever going to happen? That the president walks out on the front lawn and he says, here's the deal.
Right. I do think it's going to happen. My own personal opinion is that the first contacts are going to take place in Mexico City, where there's a huge UFO.
Why is that? Why is there such a flap going on in Mexico now?
Well, according to ancient mythological history of Mexico, the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, Mexico City was built on the foundations of Tenochtitlan. And a long time ago, there was this mythical being by the name of Quetzalcoatl, who was the plumed serpent. As a matter of fact, he was a white man that lived in that area with a white beard. And he professed a lot of things that people say that Christ, tried to make people believe in. And he promised to return one day. And some people think that these UFOs over Mexico City are the signs of his return.
They're just hundreds and hundreds and films and videos and everything.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and that information is being kept out of the United States and very slowly filtered in so we can adapt.
We're not getting much of it, are we?
No, but we're going to get a lot more, I promise you that.
All right, now, John, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Mike.
John Rhodes from Las Vegas, and he's in town for a couple of days. Be with him on Sunday night if you can. Don't drink the water. Your body absorbs more toxins in one shower than by drinking 8 glasses of water. And we're going to come back with Fred Van Loo in the next hour here on Talk Radio 810 KCMO.